So, okay, today we're talking about the three biggest freaking lies that your inner critic likes to tell you when you have that CPTSD, that is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And trust me, this is not the typical fluffy video of let's think happy thoughts version and that stuff will go away. Come on, if you watch my videos long enough, you know that's not my style at all. So buckle your seatbelts because we're about to do some inner critic work and understanding. Cool. Way to start the video, awkward person. So I'm just going to say this off the rip, or as they say, I'm going to keep it a buck because your inner critic is naturally an asshole. Well, at least it feels like that. Your inner critic is not really an asshole. What the inner critic is, it's something that was built out of survival. So it's essentially a survival mechanism. And deep within that survival mechanism is your inner child. And your inner child was powerless. It didn't have safety, it didn't have certainty, and it definitely didn't have protection, and it couldn't escape a world where it was being abused, traumatized, and just used. So if anything, your inner critic, it's a overused old algorithm process that really no longer serves a purpose. When you were a child and when you were being abused in the developmental years or for prolonged periods of time, yes, it served a purpose, but now your inner critic doesn't serve a purpose. And you might be like, how does the inner critic serve a purpose, Joe? And I'm going to say you have to keep watching because I'm going to tell you that. So let's break it down because the three lies it runs on are so common to CPTSD survivors that a lot of people I meet, including myself when I was younger, well, we thought that's just a personality trait. But it's not a personality. It's your nervous system doing an improv with a script that just no longer serves us. So lie number one is the most seductive, and it's the inner critic whispering in your ear like, hey, you big dumb cunt, everything is your fault. And you're like, whoa, calm down, inner critic. What the hell did I do to you? So most people hear that and they think, low self-esteem, of course. How would I not have low self-esteem? But that's actually not it. It's actually what they call a predictive coding glitch, a deep neurobiological expectation loop. That sounds super freaking complicated, and I have no idea what you're talking about, bro. So essentially what that is your brain, it learned early on that if harm was going to happen, right, it was because of you. It's because of me. That's why I'm being harmed. And I know that sounds like it makes absolutely no sense, but you got to think about it like this. Children, they have no cognitive ability to understand that their caregivers are dysregulated, abusive, neglectful, and emotionally just unavailable people. And so your brain defaults to the only interpretation that keeps that attachment bond intact. And so your brain goes, yeah, that must be me. It must be me that's the problem. That's why I get hurt. AKA, I deserve to be hurt. But the wild part about that is those interpretations, they get buried in, not just in your beliefs, but in something called interoceptive threat signature. Bro, you're really fancy with the wording today. Thank you. And so what that means is that your body learned any tension in the room, right? It probably is because of me, something that I did. Any shift in someone's tone, well, that's probably me again. Any disappointment, yeah, that's me. I caused that. And so that's why you can walk in a room, feel someone's mood and their energy, and instantly you brace like something is about to happen because you're so expert mode at reading other people's energy in the room.
I'm detecting a nervous system threat.
So your body is much faster than logical thinking. Your logic is like, wait, I didn't do anything wrong. But your body historically is like, yeah, this is exactly what happened right before we got hurt. So I'm going to anticipate this, even though I know logically it's not my fault. Thanks, nervous system. But here's the thing. CPTSD brains, we learn how to predict danger early. Your body starts assigning fault even before anything happens. You become responsible for imagined outcomes. Whew. So the critic says, you messed this up before you even touched anything. And that's a way to protect you for the danger that's coming and the harm that's about to be done to you. So this is not shame. This is something called anticipatory self-blame circuitry. Wow, another fancy neurological term that you use there, buddy. It's your brain's way of trying to control an uncontrollable situation by taking blame ahead of time. It's like almost being a project manager and saying this is going to be done by this day, but you have no idea what's about to happen. So I told you no basic psychoeducation today. We're going deep, bros and brosettes. So come on. Now, line number two is if you don't criticize yourself, then you're going to get blindsided. So we have to criticize ourselves because we don't want to get blindsided like the movie and get hit by that 380-pound freaking lineman of a man, because that's going to hurt. So this is your inner critic pretending it's doing you a favor. Like a toxic roommate who moves in, trashes your place and says, hey, bro, I'm just preparing you for other people when they move in here so you can be be able to respond to this thing. And you're like, yeah, that's not helpful, man. Can you clean your shit up and pay for all this stuff? Because I'm gonna sue your ass. So this big ass lie is basically rooted in something called defensive pessimism. But trauma, it turns that into something way, way darker. It's called preemptive emotional self-punishment. Another fucking fancy term, bro. You go ahead. You've been reading, haven't you? So when you grow up with CPTSD, your nervous system learns that surprise, well, that equals danger. And unpredictability, well, that equals danger as well. Being unprepared, yeah, that equals danger as well, Joe. We do not like that. And so guess what your brain formed? It forms this pretty little algorithm. If I beat myself to the punch, then nobody else can hurt me. Yeah, that's a really freaking unique way of dealing with that issue. Okay, so drum roll please, because we're going deep into the neuroscience behind it. This is called a distortion, a cognitive distortion that lies within the default mode network, aka self-referential processing loop. Yeah, okay, now this guy thinks he's Andrew Huberman. Hey Andrew, so when you got that trauma, the DMN, not DMX, where my dog's at, it becomes overreactive and wired toward negative interpretations of you. So that's why you don't anticipate the worst, you anticipate the worst about yourself. That's a big difference, right? Something's bad is going to happen. No, something's bad is going to happen because I'm the worst of the worst. And what makes this even more convincing is the body piece, because self-criticism, it activates the pain circuitry. And this is where it gets a little weird. In the same regions that process social rejections, the dorsal anterior cingulate, the insula, is literally hurts. But because it's self-inflicted, your brain interprets that as pain that it can control. It's like saying, okay, at least I hurt me and I'm not being hurt by others. And that's a pretty unique thing that your brain had to adapt in order to survive trauma, especially prolonged trauma. I know that's some next level freaking trauma logic, but it's still logic. And to your brain, in that environment, that's what makes sense, and that's what it learned in order to survive. So don't get mad at me, get mad at whoever created the brain. Yeah, that's a great question and a very philosophical, loaded topic of discussion that I won't go into right now. So when your critic says, hey, if you ease up, the world will crush you, the nervous system believes it because the nervous system is not rooted in logic. It's rooted in, can I keep this motherfucker safe? Another nicer way of saying that is the nervous system, it doesn't track the present. It just tracks patterns. And the old patterns was stay small, stay hypervigilant, stay self-critical, and we won't get blindsided. Okay, so now we get to the third lie, which is the most destructive and the most believable of them all. And that's why I close my eyes, because I can't even look at myself. Well, there's not a mirror in front of you, so how are you going to look at yourself? Okay, there I go. So line number 3 is, this is just the way I am. This is just the way you are, bro and brosets. So this is shame identity. It's not guilt. It's not low confidence. I'm talking about the deepest, most dangerous trauma imprint. Identity level shame, aka toxic level shame. And this is when the critic stops attacking your behavior and it starts attacking your existence. That's some existential crisis if I've ever heard of one. And so what this sounds like is you're too much, you're not enough, you're dumb, you're broken, you're lazy, you're cockeyed. Thanks, I didn't need to hear that. You're fundamentally different. You're unlovable by design. And so this is not a cognitive distortion. This is actually a self-processing distortion. It's created by trauma during the exact years that your brain was forming its sense of identity. Thanks, developmental trauma. Way to go. And so what's happening is the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate, and the midline structure, well, it built up this narrative of who am I? And all of those got shaped inside of an environment where it literally had to betray yourself in order to survive. So your brain didn't just learn bad things happen, it learned bad things happen because of who I am. And in turn, the self-critic enforces the identity like a prison guard, not because it hates you, but because it thinks this identity kept you safe. So if the child learned being myself equals danger, then the adult will hear that inner voice and say, don't be yourself ever and stay safe because people don't like you because you sound too ghetto and you're ignorant and you're dumb and you're never going to be anything. Whew. That inner critic is a son of a bitch, ain't it? The irony is painful, right? You're not fighting an inner critic, you're fighting an old survival identity pattern that no longer serves you. But Now, let me tell you something your inner critic never expected you to hear. So in spite of what you might think, none of these lies were actually created by you. They were created for you as a way to navigate an environment that was dangerous, unsafe, unpredictable, and chronically invalidating with a whole bunch of trauma that was happening to you. So the trauma wasn't just something that happened, right? It was what you learned to believe about yourself so you can actually endure it. But this is the happy part, right? This is where the neuroscience actually is hopeful. All of these symptoms, these predictive codings, these interceptions, these self-referential processing basically means that your brain is plastic. Neuroplasticity is the word that I use every freaking video because it's true. And what that means is your brain can have an update and your brain can change. Your brain can literally revise its identity model. It can be retrained in a threat mapping system. It can rewrite a default prediction, and it can also uncouple guilt from responsibility and shame from an identity. And that is key, my friends. But this only happens when you start catching the lies in real time, not arguing with them, not fighting them, not just recognizing them. This is prediction, not a truth. This is memory, not my identity. This is an old pattern and not a present reality. So fuck off, nervous system, brain. We're in the present, not in the past. And I know this sounds simple, but you have to understand, the moment you observe that critic instead of becoming it, your prefrontal networks, right, the logical part of your brain, your insula, it literally syncs up to a different pattern. And so you shift from threat mode into self-awareness mode. And that's neuroplasticity literally happening in real time. And guess what the inner critic hates? It hates that. It goes, whoa, 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 whoa. Since when do you have a perspective, dumbass? So when did we start talking back? And who gave you the right to question me? And you know what you can tell it? You can tell it, hey, buddy, you're not fired, but we're going to reassign your position because you're a little too critical for my taste. Don't have to use harsh words. Just use your calm, assertive nature. Because in reality, the inner critic has useful skills like disconcernment, pattern recognition, attention to emotional micro shifts. It's just been using it in a very hurtful way to hurt you because it thought that pain it equals safety, but it doesn't. So when you start healing from CPTSD, you don't get rid of that critic. You just update the job description and say, hey, you're not going to be in charge anymore on the front end. We just need you now on the back end. So instead of attack the self, it becomes protect the self. Instead of predict danger, it becomes recognize reality. Instead of shame identity, it becomes support identity. You're basically just flipping the script and using those skills in a much more positive way. So that's what healing looks like. Your old protective patterns, it stops ruining your life and it starts resourcing. And so the next time your inner critic says, hey, everything is your fault, you big dumb, hey, calm down. That's what you tell it. Relax. We're living in the reality, not in a survival protective prediction mechanism mode. Let's bring it back down. So you made it this far in life with a brain that basically was built to protect you inside of a very chaotic environment. But now you get to rebuild it with clarity, support, truth, psychoeducation, neuroeducation, and all that good stuff. And that right there, to me, it's what breaks the lies. It softens the inner critic and it tells yourself, we can love ourselves. I can be loved. I don't have to be so harsh. So if you guys want me to continue more about the inner critic and different ways to self-soothe, heal the inner critic, and learn different skills about the inner critic and how to deal with that when you have CPTSD, well, you got to leave that comment down below. Okay, and now I'm going to go do some positive affirmations and tell my inner critic how it can be reassigned and updated with a nice little bump in pay so it can start building me up instead of breaking me down. Okay.
I will update my inner critic. I will give it a promotion. I will get my inner critic a pay bump. I deserve it because I'm worth it.